If you've been scrolling through endless lists of gaming laptops, weighing screen refresh rates against bulk, and still feel stuck wondering which machine actually fits the way you play, work, and travel, this review is here to clear that up. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. I've spent the last couple of weeks running the MSI Thin 15 through a typical week of gaming, class assignments, and a bit of content creation, so I can tell you exactly where it shines and where it falls short. First off, the thing that most people notice about this model is how light it feels in the bag. At just over 4 pounds and a chassis that looks more like a premium ultrabook than a gaming laptop, you can slip it onto a coffee shop table or into a cramped airplane seat without the usual bulk. That portability is the main reason someone would pick a Thin 15 over the bulkier 17-inch monsters you see on the market. If you're the type who hops between dorm rooms, coffee shops, or a small apartment and still want to dive into a quick match after a day of classes, the size and weight are real wins. Performance is where the specs start to tell a story. The 13th Gen Intel i5-13420H brings 8 cores, 4 performance cores, and 4 efficiency cores into a 12-thread package. In practice, that means you can have a game running on the RTX 3050 while you have a web browser, Discord, and a music player all open, and the laptop still feels responsive. I tested a mix of titles. In Valorant, the 144Hz IPS panel delivered buttery smooth frame rates well above 144 frames per second at high settings, and the screen's 300 nits brightness was enough for a dimly lit dorm but required a bit of a tilt when I was near a sunny window. In more demanding games like Cyberpunk 2077, the RTX 3050 kept the frame rate hovering around 5060 frames per second on medium settings, which is respectable for a 15-inch thin chassis but not enough for ultra-high graphics if you're chasing that cinematic feel. One of the standout practicalities is the 64GB of DDR4 RAM paired with a 4TB NVMe SSD. Most gaming laptops stop at 16 or 32GB, but MSI loaded this one with enough memory to keep dozens of tabs, a video editing suite, and a game client all in RAM without any noticeable slowdowns. The storage is massive enough that you can install several large games, store raw video footage, and still have room for a personal media library. When I swapped between Minecraft mods, a Photoshop project, and a 30GB game install, the SSD never hiccuped. Load time stayed under 2 seconds across the board. Connectivity is another area where the Thin 15 feels thoughtful. You get a full-size RJ45 Ethernet port, which is a surprise on a laptop this slim, and it made a difference for me on days when I needed a rock-solid connection for multiplayer sessions. The Wi-Fi 6E module handled 5 GHz networks with ease, so even when I was away from a wired connection, the latency stayed low enough for competitive play. There's also a headphone/microphone combo jack for quick headset swaps, and the backlit Cosmos Gray keyboard is comfortable enough for long typing sessions. Though the key travel is a bit shallower than a full-size mechanical board, nothing you can't adapt to if you're used to laptop keyboards. Now, who should actually consider buying this machine? If you're a college student or a remote worker who wants a single device for both work and gaming, the MSI Thin 15 hits a sweet spot. The huge RAM and SSD make multitasking painless, and the 144Hz screen gives you that competitive edge in fast-paced shooters or MOBAs. It's also a decent entry point for creators who need extra memory for rendering previews while still wanting to game on the side. The laptop's modest footprint means you can carry it around campus or on a weekend trip without drawing attention. On the flip side, if your primary goal is to max out every visual setting in the newest AAA titles, you might feel a little cramped. The RTX 3050, while capable, isn't going to push 4K textures at ultra settings without sacrificing frame rate. Gamers who are looking for a desktop-level experience on the go think Red Dead Redemption 2 at max ultra with ray tracing should probably aim for a laptop with an RTX 3060 or higher. Likewise, if you're on a very tight budget, the price point for a thin laptop loaded with 64GB RAM and a 4TB SSD might feel steep compared to a more modestly spec'd machine that still runs most games fine. There are a few hidden trade-offs that become clear after a few weeks of use. The thin chassis, while great for portability, means the cooling system has to work harder. Under sustained loads like an hour-long Apex Legends session, the fans spin up noticeably, and you'll hear a low-frequency whine that can be audible if you're wearing headphones at low volume. The battery life, which isn't advertised in the spec sheet I saw, feels average, about 3 to 4 hours of mixed use, dropping to under 2 hours if you push the 144Hz screen and the GPU together.